Okay, imagine this. A world where countries are actually lining up to buy really advanced surveillance satellites, but they're not going to the usual suspects, the US or Europe. No, they're turning to this unexpected player, a country that just a few years back, honestly, wasn't really even on the map for this kind of high-tech stuff. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. We're doing a deep dive today into India's, well, frankly, booming space defense sector. Our mission here is to figure out how India is kind of quietly turning itself into a major global player, specifically in space surveillance and defense tech. We're talking about providing those critical eyes in the sky for nations all over the world. And what's really revealing here isn't just that India is in this space game, it's that it seems uniquely positioned to become the world's non-aligned, cost-effective alternative for this kind of overhead intelligence. It's filling a gap left by the traditional powers. That feels like the real game changer we need to explore, and we've got a stack of recent articles, research, expert insights to draw on. It's just wild because, only a few years ago, Indian space startups, people were heavily questioning their commercial prospects. Makes this climb even more startling.
It really is an astonishing surge. I mean, a sector that was practically non-existent for India has just exploded. And this isn't just about launching rockets, right? India's been good at that for decades.
Right.
This is different. This is about actually winning major commercial contracts. We're talking manufacturing sophisticated satellites and, crucially, offering surveillance data services directly to governments globally.
Yeah, and you see that playing out so clearly with companies like Digantara. The CEO, Anirudh Sharma, he was initially focused on space situational awareness, basically mapping all the stuff orbiting Earth, right?
Exactly. Tracking satellites, debris, that sort of thing. A crowded space up there.
But now, get this, he's actually setting up a satellite manufacturing assembly line. That's a huge pivot, and apparently it was driven purely by this wave of global government interest. They want their own space defense, their own surveillance gear.
It signals a really fundamental shift in what countries are demanding. And, if you connect that to the bigger picture, this move really puts India in a fascinating position. It could directly challenge the U.S. and China,
Traditional leaders.
who've, basically been the de facto leaders in this incredibly crucial area for a long time. India seems to be carving out its own distinct path here.
So let's dig into that demand then. The demand for an eye in the sky. It seems like it's absolutely soaring. We're seeing this huge rise in requests for high-res imaging from satellites, not just for general mapping,
Right.
but for what they're calling sovereign surveillance use cases.
Sovereign is the key word there.
Exactly. It means governments don't just want the data anymore. They want to own the satellites, control the info stream themselves, no relying on other nations. Digantara Sharma even mentioned contract sizes. He said they can range from, $1 million up to $15 million?
Yeah, depending on how many satellites the client actually wants.
So it's serious money even for smaller packages.
Definitely. And it raises that important question, why now? Why this sudden surge? Because it's not just for military defense, though that's part of it.
Okay.
Nations are looking for these comprehensive solutions. Things like precise forestry management, hyperlocal weather forecasting.
Okay. So much broader applications.
Exactly. Urban planning, even disaster management. The uses are incredibly wide-ranging. And that's pushing the demand for having your own sovereign access to this kind of detailed, reliable data.
Okay, so given that huge demand, who are the key Indian players actually making these waves? It's not just Digantara, is it?
No, not at all. Beyond Digantara, you've got other rising stars popping up. There's Galaxy, for instance. They've strategically moved into high-resolution imaging.
Okay.
Then you have Bellatrix Aerospace. They just introduced something called an ultra-low Earth satellite.
Ultra-low, what does that actually mean in practice?
Well, the ultra-low part is key. By orbiting much closer to Earth than traditional satellites.
Lower orbit, got it.
Right. They can capture sharper images, much higher resolution, and, crucially, transmit the data back much faster, lower latency.
So better for real-time surveillance then.
Precisely. And it also dramatically reduces the cost of the mission, which is a huge factor. It's really striking how quickly these, agile startups are innovating.
And it's not just startups, right? You mentioned legacy players, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just the new kids on the block. You've got companies like Ananth Technologies. They've been supplying ISRO, India's space agency, for 30 years.
Wow. Okay. Deep experience there.
Absolutely. And now they're opening up their manufacturing capabilities to global customers. So you have this blend of nimble startups and these established giants. Plus, you see big conglomerates getting interested, like the Group acquiring Alpha Design Technologies. It really signals a maturing ecosystem. Massive potential.
And even big tech is noticing, right? I saw Google invested in Pixxel.
Yeah, that was back in June 2023.
Hmm?
Pixxel is known for its ultra-high-resolution surveillance satellites. They offer it as data as a service.
Data as a service. So clients subscribe rather than buy the satellite itself.
Often, yes. And Pixxel even managed to secure contracts with DARPA over in the U.S.
DARPA. That's significant.
Very. And then there's Amazon Web Services, AWS. They just announced the second edition of their Space Accelerator program.
Okay.
And the focus areas, satellite imagery and geospatial applications. Basically, using satellite data to analyze and understand Earth's surface. Critical stuff for everything from urban planning to military intel.
And wasn't there something specific about the first one?
Yes. That's the really interesting part. The inaugural 2024 edition of that AWS Accelerator, it targeted India alone.
Wow, just India?
Just India. That tells you a lot about the level of interest from major global players.
Definitely sends a signal. And you also mentioned the JSW Group making a strategic move.
Yes, that's also very notable. They've formed a $90 million partnership with a U.S. company, Shield AI.
Shield AI, what do they do?
They specialize in AI for defense, particularly autonomous systems. The deal is to indigenously manufacture unmanned surveillance and ballistic aircraft in India.
Through technology transfer?
Exactly. This is crucial stuff for modern warfare, obviously. And there's potential to supply these systems to what they call trusted geographies.
And there was a quote about a specific operation.
Right. Sarjan Shah, who's the MD for India at Shield AI, mentioned that there's been a considerable fill-up since Operation Sindoor.
Operation Sindoor.
It was apparently a military operation that really highlighted some key gaps in India's defense capabilities. That seems to have spurred significant investment in becoming more self-reliant, upgrading infrastructure.
Okay, so we've got startups, legacy players, big tech interests, major defense partnerships. The whole ecosystem is clearly buzzing. But it brings us back to that core question, the one tying it all together. Why India? Why is this all happening now?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the reasons are, well, they're multidirectional. But they all seem to converge on India being in the right place at the right time. Geopolitical shifts are a huge factor, a really big one.
Like what specifically?
Well, Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, that led to sanctions, obviously, and caused a major disruption in the supply chain for space engineering and manufacturing. Russia was a primary provider for many.
Ah, okay, so that created a vacuum.
A significant vacuum. Add to that rising tensions in West Asia and that recent India-Pakistan skirmish. It just makes more nations urgently feel the need for their own sovereign solutions. They don't want to be reliant.
So traditional suppliers are falling short.
In many ways, yes. The U.S., for example, doesn't cater to every single nation. They have pretty stringent defense partnership policies.
Right.
Russia, as we said, is no longer seen as a sustainable partner by many due to the conflict and sanctions.
Okay. What about Europe, France?
France has a capable manufacturing sector,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's often just too expensive within the EU context for many potential buyers.
And China?
China. Well, it's largely a protectionist economy. They mostly build for themselves and maybe their closest allies. They're not really playing this wider global market in the same way.
So India steps into this gap.
Exactly. India has effectively stepped into this void. It's even replaced Russia as a primary defense and security supplier for some countries. Armenia is a key example.
Armenia. They're relying on India for space tech now.
They are. Vinit Kundera from the Strategy Research and Growth Foundation put it pretty bluntly. He said many of the older, existing supplier markets are today out of the question.
That Armenia example is really telling. What does that specifically say about India's appeal? Is it just about being cheaper, or is there more to it? Like a trust factor, maybe, given that vacuum you described?
I think it's definitely a combination. Cost is a factor, for sure. India offers value. But it's more than that. India's relatively stable geopolitical outlook, its large economy, and importantly, the global reputation of ISRO.
ISRO has huge credibility.
It really does. That makes India an incredibly attractive and reliable alternative. Crucially, India seems to offer this high-quality, cost-effective solution without all the geopolitical strings that might come attached with the traditional suppliers.
That's a powerful differentiator. And it's not just about selling the hardware, the satellites themselves.
No, and that's a key point. As Galaxy Suyash Singh pointed out, India has this incredible opportunity not just to be a direct supplier of satellites, but to innovate on the services.
Like the resolution, the data analysis.
Exactly. Improving surveillance resolution, providing sophisticated data analytics based on that imagery. It's about leveraging the data, not just building the tools.
Okay, let's pivot to the money then, because the economic potential you're hinting at sounds, well, immense. Can we put some numbers on it? What's the market like?
It's significant. On average, globally, satellite surveillance data can cost anywhere from, say, $10 to $100 per square kilometer
Per square kilometer.
per week.
Per week, yeah. From just a single satellite.
Okay, that adds up fast.
It does, but it gets much, much bigger. If you talk about a bundled offering for a whole nation's borders, that's imagery plus the data analytics, you could be looking upwards of $50 million.
$50 million for one package.
Yep. And get this, a single contract for a full nation's satellite data coverage for an entire year. That can cross $1 billion.
Wow. Over $1 billion for one annual contract.
It's possible, yes. Those numbers really paint a picture of the scale we're talking about here.
So what does that mean for India's economy specifically?
Well, the projections are pretty staggering. Space-based defense services are forecast to contribute over $17 billion to India's economy in less than 8 years.
17 billion, okay.
And just looking at the near term, by the end of this fiscal year, India is apparently set to secure nearly $3 billion just in space-based surveillance contracts alone. $3 billion just this year.
And looking further out, some analysts think space surveillance services could account for nearly half of the $44 billion annual revenue target that New Delhi has for India's overall space industry by 2033.
Half. Just from surveillance.
Just from surveillance. It really underlines what a massive business opportunity this is.
And are companies already seeing this translate into actual revenue?
Oh, yes. Digantara, for example, expects to cross $30 million in annual revenue by the next fiscal year.
$30 million already.
And Ananth Technologies, that legacy player, they're already over $30 million for fiscal year 24, and they're expecting exponential growth.
So the money is flowing. And that means investment too, right? Companies need capital to scale up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Private companies are seriously ramping up their capital expenditure. Digantara, remember, they already raised $12 million.
Yeah.
They're now back in the market looking for a $50 million funding round.
$50 million. Okay, that's serious expansion capital.
And Galaxy, they secured $10 million previously. They're also out pursuing a new funding round to expand what they can offer.
It definitely shows deep investor confidence in the sector, doesn't it?
It really does. And Chaitanya Giri from the Observer Research Foundation, he highlights that it's not just potential anymore. Countries from Europe, Africa, the Middle East, they are actively looking to India right now as a reliable supplier for space tech and satellites.
So the global demand is the real engine here.
It absolutely is. Well, you know, the U.S. tends to focus on large contracts tied to bilateral treaties, and China mostly builds for itself.
Right.
India seems to have found this really clear path, focusing on geospatial defense services, particularly these surveillance satellites, as kind of low-hanging fruit. It's a critical need they can meet effectively and affordably.
It sounds like a very strategic niche.
It is. And Sarjan Shah from Shield AI, talking about their partnership with JSW, he underscored the long-term vision. He said India represents a multi-year partnership for them, and it gives their U.S. company a strong footing in what he called one of the world's most important space economies. So it's seen as a win-win.
Yeah, that sums it up well. And Digantara's Anirudh Sharma, the CEO we mentioned earlier, he put it perfectly, I think. He said, there is a clear need within India and across the world to build space infrastructure that is innovative, offers mapping and surveillance, and does so at a considerably more scalable and cost-efficient structure than what the rest of the world has offered.
That really captures the essence of it, doesn't it? Innovation, scalability, cost efficiency, meeting a global need.
So we've really seen India seize this moment, hasn't we? Transforming from, well, a bit of a long shot into potentially a global leader in space surveillance. But beyond the impressive numbers and the cool tech, there feels like a deeper story unfolding here about trust, self-reliance, maybe shifting global power dynamics. What really started as kind of a skeptical commercial venture for these Indian space companies has just rapidly turned into this massive global opportunity, driven by that sovereign demand we talked about and these big geopolitical shifts. India seems genuinely positioned now to be the world's kind of go-to provider for essential eyes in the sky.
Yeah, just to quickly recap the core points. Space-based defense and surveillance. It's now a profoundly lucrative area for Indian companies, no question. And the surge is directly driven by nations wanting their own surveillance satellites, wanting to reduce their reliance on others.
That sovereign push.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you've got Indian startups like Digantara, Galaxy, Bellatrix, Pixxel really leading the charge, but also the established players, the big conglomerates like JSW Defense jumping in, and the sheer scale of the business opportunity. It's just immense. Remember, single contracts for full national coverage, potentially worth over $1 billion a year.
It's staggering. So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening right now? Consider how India's rapidly growing space defense sector doesn't just reshape global power dynamics, which it certainly does, but it also fundamentally alters how nations think about securing borders, managing resources, even responding to climate change and disasters. This isn't just about satellites, is it? Could India's success here in providing these sovereign space solutions set a precedent? Could it push countries towards much greater self-reliance in other critical tech areas, AI, advanced manufacturing, quantum computing? How might this whole eyes in the sky pivot actually be a blueprint for a more decentralized, maybe more multipolar tech future? Something to think about.